Hello fellow tryhards, it's your boy Mad Buddha back again. This time we're going to be taking a deeper look at Garden of Terror. Garden of Terror is a large 3-lane map with 6 mercenary camps, 4 siege giant camps, and 2 knight camps. These 2 siege giant camps push down middle lane. These 2 siege giant camps push down their lanes of top and bottom respectively, and these 2 knight camps push down their lanes of top and bottom, respectively. Let's talk the map mechanic on Garden of Terror. The first night starts at 1 minute and 30 seconds into the game. There are 6 total seed camps, 4 small seed camps that have 15 seeds in total each, and 2 large terrors which each hold 60 seeds. Night will come again 3 minutes and 20 seconds after the last night ended. Nights are independent from when people choose to suit up as the Garden Terror. Let's talk some basic strategy for Garden of Terror. On the first night, in order to get a terror, you must get at least 10 seeds from one side and all the seeds from another, or win both large terrors near total. This will give you the 100 seeds required for pushing down a lane. Most of the strategy of Garden Terror comes when one team has a terror and the other team does not. There are 2 ways to use your terror. Either it split pushes away from your team, drawing large numbers of the enemy team to deal with it, or it pushes with your team, allowing you to have an extremely powerful siege just like any other map where you push with the map mechanic. Make sure to use your seed in one of 2 ways. Either put it out in the lane here, where it can only affect the towers, allowing you to have an advantageous siege while protecting the seed, or put it deep enough into the enemy team where you can use it to disable all of the enemy team's structures. You want to be placing the seed as the Garden Terror that polymorphs enemies into places where it doesn't allow the enemy team to destroy the seed quickly. Keeping your seed alive and disabling enemy structures for as long as possible is the most important thing that you can be doing as a Garden Terror. When you're the Garden Terror, don't be afraid to fight enemy players. The Garden Terror itself hits very hard, and in the late game can be one of the most powerful forces on your team, taking any bruiser or regular tank and turning them into a carry, while still also having enough health to be a bruiser or regular tank. Early on in the game, your objective should be to use terrors to break walls. Once you break walls, you can use the mini mercenary camps around the map to create a lot of pressure during the soaking camps phase and also during the upcoming night. Using the mercenary camps to create this pressure will allow your team to get more seeds than the other team easily. If the enemy team has to send several members of their team around the map to deal with mercenary pressure, those members cannot also be collecting seeds. Essentially, you want to use those mercenary camps to snowball from the first terror you receive into second and third. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the strategies that can happen when both teams have a terror. During a time when both teams have a terror, usually one of 2 things will happen. Either both terrors will split off and try to split push for as much damage as possible, while the 4 members of the enemy team that are not the terror try and kill it. Or both teams will get in a team fight with their terror, trying to whittle down the health of the other terror as much as possible so as to have their terror still alive with health while the other terror is dead, moving right back into a 1 terror situation. There can, however, be times where during a 2 terror phase, a team opts to push with their terror, while one team opts to let their terror split push. Usually, the team that is pushing with their terror is trying to push for a game-ending situation, or is trying to make a large comeback. This is because they have to get a large amount of EXP while the other enemy terror split pushes for free. I would suggest never letting this happen in one of your games. You always want to kill opposing terrors. It is very rare that you'll find yourself in a situation where you need to be as 5 with your terror while letting the enemy terror get free value. Frequently in this situation, when played poorly or done at a misjudged time, you will find yourself giving the enemy terror so much value that you're practically throwing the game away. That's enough about basic strategy on Garden of Terror. Now let's talk about some of the places that you're going to be fighting on Garden of Terror and how the terrain in these areas affects what you can and cannot do. Garden Terror is predominantly a very open map with very few choke points to take advantage of. However, these open areas are cut up quite nicely by a lot of well-placed bushes that allow for easy picks on rotations and also to give safety to certain characters during team fights. One of the most common places you'll be fighting is around the large terror spawns during night. There's only one small choke area, and it's this little arc right here with bushes on either side. If you've seen my Braxis video, you'll know that this is nothing more than bait. You never want to enter one of these small choked areas unless you have the mobility to immediately get back out again, as getting pincered off in this section is a very easy and quick way to give the other team a free kill. This bush in the back here is great for the team who gets control of this side on the terror. This is because you can use it to have a vision advantage over the enemy team who you can clearly see in this large open space. Try and use the open space that you have to get your mobile heroes into areas where they can pressure enemy teams up into the small choke points. Because choke points are so limited, but also, of course, so deadly, it is important to try and corral the enemy team through zoning and the use of well-placed spells into areas where you can capitalize on their low health. This, of course, being here, here, and here. If you can get a good number of enemy teams characters isolated off into these choke points, you should have no problem capitalizing on them with your less mobile characters. You can also use this large open space as a way to cut through the enemy team like butter. Tanks often die by going too far deep into open space, so once you see a tank initiate, if they've broken off a good enough chunk of space where the enemy team cannot follow up on their initiation, look to simply drop the tank while it's isolated, even though it's only by a few inches. The next place we're going to talk about is this open space back here. This is mirrored with the other side of the map. Because mercenary camps come in such mass and have such high value during the long night phases in which they can apply pressure, it is very likely that you'll find yourself fighting over these siege giants and these knights. Fights in these areas often develop either into the terror side that we just talked about, or over into this open space here. This open space only has one bush in it, and yet this bush can be the make or break in every team fight that you take in this area. Because bushes shut off vision of the teams who do not control them, you can be having a great fight right up until you lose control of this bush and the other team gains control of it. Whichever team can have a tank, or admittedly any character in here over the other team, has a 360 degree vision of radius, while the other team will only ever have 270 degrees of vision in which they can use to punish enemy teams' mistakes. In order to compensate for this lack of vision, teams will often spread out wide around this bush, making them have plenty of vision to compensate for their inability to control the bush, but also splitting themselves off as small isolated targets that you can pick off one at a time. As such, when fighting in this area, it's usually better once you lose bush control here to simply concede the fight and back up. This has been a deeper look at Garden of Terror. This video was sponsored by Nihilism Gaming. Check them out at nihilismgaming.com, where they offer Heroes of the Storm coaching lessons.